The world enters a state where demons are creating chaos, and gods are plotting against each other until we meet Heron, a simple poor miner who becomes humanity and God's breath of hope. He awakens his true heritage as a son of Zeus and transforms into a demigod to save the world from a demonic army. Ends up becomes the hero of the gods. Heron, a poor and hardworking commoner in ancient Greece, spends the whole day collecting minerals, but upon returning to the city to sell them to a merchant, the very shameless one mocks Heron by paying him only 2 coins, since no one else would agree to do business with Heron because he is considered scum by everyone. He has no choice but to humble himself and accept the injustice of accepting the paltry payment. Then, as he explains this to his mother, he is distracted by the commotion and runs to see what is going on. The royal cavalry pursues 2 dangerous demons, and Alexia, their leader, tells the people to stay alert. Later, while Heron is patrolling the area, he finds an old man named Elijah badly wounded and assists him and his mother. To heal the man's wounds, he descends to a spring to fetch some water, and to his surprise, finds a lifeless young woman there. A demon suddenly appears and violently throws himself at Heron, sparking a fierce fight between the two. Fortunately for Heron, Alexia arrives just in time to save him, and the two collaborate to defeat the monster, but it manages to escape. Later, Alexia scours the city for clues, and after spotting a suspicious man, she violently beats him and places him under arrest. Later, she exposes him in front of the entire city, explaining that a new cult threatens civilization. Alexia burns the man with a blight, and he reveals his true nature, so Alexia finishes him off in full view of everyone. Seeing Heron full of fear and doubt, Elijah explains to him the origin of these monsters. At the beginning of time, the gods and the Titans were constantly at war. When the gods defeated the last of the Titans, he cast a curse on them that was unleashed as soon as their blood came into contact with the sea. Thus, the giants arose, who brought calamity again to the gods. The battle between the two sides seemed to have no end, so one day Zeus found it necessary to dialogue with 2 of them, creating at that moment agreement and reasoning. Thanks to this, the 2 giants betrayed their side and the gods won the victory. Hermes sealed the souls of the giants in a cauldron, and Poseidon was in charge of burying the giants in the depths of the sea. Many years later, a man found the corpse of one of the giants, and, on coming into contact with it, his soul became corrupted, and he stopped worshipping the gods, swearing allegiance to the giants. Gradually, more people joined him and began to eat the flesh of the giant, giving rise to demons, fearsome creatures capable of camouflaging themselves among society. Heron asks him why the gods allow such a thing, and Elijah replies that the gods do not intervene in all matters to prevent humans from being weak. The next day, Alexia invites Heron to join the army, due to the fact that they were able to capture the demon thanks to him. But Heron refuses, arguing that he has no interest in protecting the people who treated him like dirt. And he was not wrong, as the Brazen Ones came to his house to finish off his mother, arguing that she is a demon and brought misfortune to the town. Heron violently confronts them, but although he manages to buy some time, he receives a violent beating, and his mother decides to burn herself to prove that the accusations are false. When all the attackers leave, Elijah tells Heron that there is adamantium ore on the mountaintop, ideal for making an indestructible sword. Heron goes to find his mother to tell her about the dreams he has had in the last few days, which have her as the protagonist. Electra replies that she was the wife of Periander, the king of Corinth, whom she married for political reasons. However, Zeus was also interested in her, so he took Periander's appearance to be with her and treated her very sweetly, which confused Electra since Periander was actually someone detestable. Thanks to this, she realized that it could not be the same person and devised a plan to unmask the imposter. Zeus had no choice but to tell her the truth, but this reached the ears of Hera, his real wife, who began to torment Periander in his dreams, revealing the truth to him. Trying to flee, Heron is surprised by a powerful demon named Seraphim and decides to fight for his life. But Zeus observes everything from afar and cannot help but guide his son, who tries to disobey him at first, but seeing that Zeus' advice is effective, he decides to obey. Seeing that the whole town would be overtaken by the demons in a matter of minutes, Alexia decides to slip away and escape elsewhere. Electra's soul prepares to travel to Hades with Hermes, her guide. Zeus bids her an emotional farewell and gives Hermes 2 gold coins. After crossing the valleys and seas, Hermes and Electra arrive in the underworld. Hermes gives the coins to Heron and warns him that Electra is important to Zeus. Before leaving for good, Electra appears to Heron and wishes him good luck. Meanwhile, Seraphim relentlessly pursues Alexia everywhere until he manages to corner her in a waterfall. However, Alexia changes form and reveals that she is actually Hera, the wife of Zeus, who seeks revenge. She shows Seraphim the truth about her past, telling him that Acrisius, his uncle, tried to assassinate him to take his place on the throne, but that Ariana, a faithful servant of the king, saved him and dedicated her life to hiding him and keep him safe. Hera intervened in his life, helping her on multiple occasions. So Seraphim grew up safe and sound until pre-adolescence, when Acrisius's men arrived on the scene and tortured Ariana in front of Seraphim. Hera again intervened to save Seraphim's life, but this event marked him forever. As he grew older, he managed to infiltrate among these men and finish them off one by one, taking the revenge he had long awaited. The army of Acrisius chased Seraphim until he was cornered in a valley, where the corpse of a giant lay, which Seraphim had no choice but to eat in order to become a demon and finish off all his enemies. Hera tries to convince Seraphim that all the tragedies that have befallen him are because of Zeus, and as he does not see it the same way, Hera shows him that the woman he killed before was Electra, his real mother. Seeing the amulet that Electra treasured in her last minutes of life, Seraphim is enraged. Alexia meets with a wise and special friend named Chiron, who uses his knowledge to properly study the map Alexia carries with her. Chiron quickly realizes that the map is aligned to the stellar constellations, and that it holds the location of the Cauldron of Giants. But just as he was about to reveal this location to her, he tells her that the demons have come for her, apologizing that he found it necessary to betray her. However, he saves her from a deadly attack, arguing that this was not the deal they had made. Also, Chiron gives a doctored map to Seraphim. Anyway, the demon takes Alexia as a prisoner. Meanwhile, Heron devises a plan to ambush the demons and shares it with his companions. Then, Seraphim meets Hera again, and Hera reveals to him the location of the sword that Zeus forged for Heron, as well as that he must use it to kill Heron, without telling him that he is her brother. Seraphim finds the sword near the place where Heron used to live with Electra, and sees the incredible power of the weapon. Meanwhile, Heron carries out his plan with the help of Evios and Kofi, two other prisoners. The plan is a success, and all the prisoners on the ship manage to free themselves from the chains and collaborate with Heron to free themselves from all the demons and take control of the ship. On the other hand, Hermes meets with Zeus to warn him that he saw Hera conspiring with Seraphim to tilt the war in favor of the demons, which angers Zeus. In addition, Seraphim was on his way to assassinate Heron. So Zeus intervenes euphorically and launches a flurry of devastating attacks that echo throughout the land, driving Seraphim away and putting Heron to a shipwreck. Heron arrives on shore and is reunited with Alexia. Zeus offers to help him, but Heron is very reluctant. But Zeus manages to convince Heron, Alexia, and the entire crew of the ship to join in battle against Hera and Seraphim. He also gives Heron a mythological griffin to take to Olympus and present to the gods. While all the gods mutter horrible things about Heron, treating him like a bastard, Hermes takes the lead and kindly greets the boy. At that moment, Hera appears violently and begins to argue with Zeus for having brought a bastard son to Olympus. Zeus acknowledges his mistakes and apologizes, but Hera tells him that she will only forgive him if he ends Heron's life. Obviously, Zeus refuses this and the situation worsens, as Hera gets all the gods on her side, except Hermes, who remains loyal to Zeus. To train Heron, Zeus puts him to the test so that he is able to discover if he has divine powers since he is a demigod. Heron trains and becomes frustrated at being beaten time and again, but Zeus tells him that he must stop using anger as the engine of his fights, explaining that he will never be able to fully exploit his strength. But this infuriates Heron, who leaves the place offended. The next day, however, Zeus has no choice but to reveal to Heron that Seraphim is his brother, which is why he did not let him die. Meanwhile, Alexia meets Chiron and he explains to her how to get to the cemetery of the giants, as well as giving her the secret to end all the demons. Back at the training camp, Heron manages to stabilize his emotions and defeats the practice tool. At that moment, Hermes arrives on the scene and tells Zeus that the gods have gone to the underworld to meet with Hades, so he fears that a war between the gods will break out. At that moment, a strange spider lands on Heron, so Hermes tells him that the Moiras want to meet with him. When they arrive at the meeting, they explain to him, by means of parables, that the fate of humanity is completely in his hands. The next day, Zeus visits Seraphim to explain that everything Hera told him was a lie, showing him through visions that he was actually the one who took care of him and helped him overcome adversity, while Hera led him to kill his own mother. In addition, he apologizes for not having done things better and gives him a clue to find Acrisius and carry out his revenge, telling him that Hera is only using him and has no interest in truly helping him. Meanwhile, Chiron guides the group through a dense and dangerous fog that lies between the valley and the giant's graveyard, but Alexia tells him that he must take shelter as he is too valuable. When the group finally reaches the gate of the place, they encounter a dangerous enemy, but Heron arrives just in time to help them. On the other hand, Seraphim finally finds Acrisius' hideout and tortures him bit by bit to quench his thirst for revenge. Meanwhile, Heron and his group enter the cemetery of the giants, but find it empty. However, it is full of demons, who ambush the group. Seraphim tries to convince Heron to join him in defeating the gods, as they are to blame for everything bad that has happened to them. But as Heron refuses, the demons launch an attack, and the humans flee, suffering too many casualties. Hera appears again in front of Seraphim and tells him to finish the work he started, so he decides to leave for the cauldron of the world. Meanwhile, Hermes, Hera, Ares, and Apollo carry out an intense fight in which Hera manages to steal Hermes' bracelet before he escapes. On the other hand, Seraphim manages to reach the cauldron guarded by Talos, and after a brief battle, manages to escape with the precious treasure. Then, Hera uses the bracelet of Hermes to untie the souls of all the giants and call them from the depths of the sea. In addition, she appears in front of Zeus, taking the form of Hermes, to stab him and leave him on the verge of death. The giants begin to march back towards civilization, and Hera uses the cauldron to blackmail them and strike a deal with them to defeat Zeus. Poseidon sees all this and returns to Olympus to join Zeus's side, who plans a strategy to stop the fearsome giants. Hermes offers to retrieve the cauldron, but Heron tells him that it is better to leave that task to him, since no one would suspect a human. Each side prepares for battle and takes up their positions for the decisive moment. The giants march to Olympus with Hera in the lead, while Zeus leads the other side. The combat between gods, giants, and demons breaks out epically, and each side attacks relentlessly for victory. But the entire strategy of Zeus's side is to distract Hera so that Heron can infiltrate their ranks and steal the cauldron. However, Hera manages to ambush Zeus and puts the group in trouble. Heron manages to find the cauldron and rushes to take it, but Seraphim intercepts him as he was about to do so, and the battle between the two begins. Meanwhile, Zeus begs Hera to stop the war, but she is filled with anger and refuses. At that moment, one of the giants betrays Hera and begins to torture her, so Zeus rushes to her rescue and epically sacrifices himself to save her. Meanwhile, Heron recovers the cauldron thanks to the help of Kofi and Alexia, who knocks Seraphim off his mount. The battle between Heron and Seraphim breaks out, and the two fight to the death. However, Seraphim manages to put Heron between a rock and a hard place, but Heron has no problem sacrificing himself just as Zeus did. Moreover, at that very moment, his powers as a worthy heir to the god of lightning are revealed, and he finishes off Seraphim. Then, he manages to take the cauldron just before a giant manages to crush him, so he seals the soul of each of them and ends the war. The next day, his brothers recognize him as a hero and accept him as a son of Zeus. In the end, Seraphim wakes up in the underworld and meets Hades, who offers to save him from the horrible fate that awaits him if he helps him achieve his goals. The end. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to get new anime recaps.